Hello, and if you're watching this, you're part of Dr. Foley's 1503. This week during labs, we had 3 assignments, the last one being the SolidWorks introduction assignment, and I think all 4 of my labs kind of ended on different spots in that assignment. So I'm going to real quickly go over um, where I would like us all to be at the beginning of this upcoming week for lab. Um, so all the steps that we're going to go over, I'm going to kind of rush everyone through in class. So this is your opportunity to get some exposure to it because we're not going to spend much more time on any of these steps. We're just going to continue on with the assignment after this. So if you haven't been doing very well with SolidWorks or you don't have that much CAD experience, I definitely recommend watching this whole video. If you did fine with SolidWorks and you already completed up to step 1 from Dr. Foley's assignment, then you don't really need to necessarily watch this video unless you wanted some additional exposure to SolidWorks. So the first thing I'm going to do is launch SolidWorks. So if you were in lab this week and got the pleasure of using those computers, you'll know that it's a little slow, but my computer is a little fast, and I am going to go through these steps pretty quick. So I'm going to try to cover everything along the way. My goal is to try to make this video as short as possible, but at the same time, make sure you guys get uh, more exposure to what we already covered, because I believe the more you see it, the better you'll get it. So as soon as I launch SolidWorks, the first thing I'm going to do is click on Part, and then it's going to load some more, because it goes kind of slow. My computer is pretty powerful, but the ones at school are even slower, so just make sure you're patient with this initial launching of SolidWorks. So once I launch it, I already started a new part. And the first thing that we want to do, there's 2 things. So I'm going to click on this little question mark here because that's going to open this little list of things where I can click on tutorials. And this is where we're actually going to be working on. We're on the Getting Started tab here, and we're going to do Lesson 1's parts. The other thing I want to make sure is that down here in the bottom right-hand corner of SolidWorks is where I tell SolidWorks what units I want to be in. So mine already says MMGS, which means that I'm in millimeters, grams, and seconds. Yours may start off with IPS, so you do want to make sure to change this little window down here, this little tab, this option, to MMGS. So beyond that, I now have a new part loaded, and I got my tutorial going. The tutorial has a couple buttons. This back button at the top will let you move backwards in the instructions at any point in time. This back button's always here. And then you'll notice this little blue link in the bottom right-hand corner pretty much on every window. That lets you progress forward through the tutorials. The tutorials are always going to tell you what we're going to do, followed by how to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next. The very first window it gives me is to save. So I already opened SolidWorks and made a new part. So I technically already did steps 1 and 2. At any point in time when you're doing the tutorial, if you're not sure where the button is it's talking about, you can click on the button in the tutorial and it will start blinking in SolidWorks. So you can actually see where to click. So I'm going to click on save, just like it says. And then the next step says to save it as Tutor 1, but that is a lie. Dr. Foley's instructions want us to save it as Montiel, which is my last name, so you use your last name. And then camera underscore step 1. So then I'm going to hit enter. You guys won't get this window because hopefully you're just saving it for the first time. I had to override mine because I saved it before. So that's all this first page was, just saving it. Then it's telling us we're going to actually extrude this figure. So I'm just going to follow the steps here. I will skip some of them, and I'm going to give a nod to why I'm skipping them. But again, I want to move quickly through this so I don't make this video too long. So the first step says click this Extrude Base Boss button, and then to help SolidWorks understand where I want to start my drawing in 3D space, I'm going to click this front pane, just like the instructions say. Then it wants me to click my rectangle, corner rectangle button. So if I click the button itself, that gives me the corner rectangle. I can hit the little arrow to the right of it, and that gives me different ways that I can actually draw rectangles or parallelograms. But really, we just want the rectangle button, so I click that one. Then it wants me to hover over the origin until I see the little orange dot, and then I'm going to left click and let go. So then that gives me the ability to move my mouse, and I'm not holding down any buttons now, because all I did was left click and let go on that orange dot at the origin. And so now I can click somewhere over here to the right just to make my box of some arbitrary size. We're kind of skipping step 5, but then ultimately we just want to smart dimension this. So I'm already tethered to the origin there, but then I'm going to hit this smart dimension button, and then I can make it 120 millimeters by 120 millimeters according to the instructions in SolidWorks. And all I did was click on each side there, and then enter the dimensions. So I only have to do it on 2 sides. Now I'm done with my dimension tool, so I can hit the check mark. And now I'm actually done with my sketch, so I can hit exit sketch. And if I did everything right, it should take me into my boss extrude feature right away. And SolidWorks wants me to change this dimension to 30. So I'm going to update this one to 30 millimeters. Then I hit the check mark, and now I just extruded the whole thing. There's a bunch of other buttons here in SolidWorks that you can use. Hold on, I gotta get this out the way. So as you're using it, why is it being a pain? There we go. So there are a lot of buttons in SolidWorks, and some of them have to do with changing the views. So all of these right here are just going to flip the part around for me to let me look at the different sides of it. The most common ones the instructions are going to talk about are this isometric and trimetric views, just because it's really easy to look at it. Then there's also your middle mouse button, so I can scroll in and out with my middle mouse button to be able to scroll in and out. Just look at my part here. But then I can also click and hold down my middle mouse button to be able to move this around in 3D space too. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can manipulate this. There's also this little button at the top of your drawing pane. And if you click it itself, it puts it in the little cube. And you could just click one of the surfaces on the cubes to get to that orientation. So I think that one's kind of cool, especially if you want one of these side ones. It makes it a little easier. Or you can click the little arrow next to it, which gives you all of these same buttons that you get up there, and it's just the different ways to look at it again. I like to use my middle mouse button. And then there's also this little button next to it, which is the display style, which will give it soft edges or linear edges, or make it a simple drawing altogether. So you just have to play with some of this stuff as you want to get to know it. So we did all of that, and that's all this is talking about, is that you can change it the way it looks as you're building it. So then we're going to go this way, and now we're pretty much doing the exact same thing we just did, except we're doing it with the cap here. So extrude boss base, then I want to pick this surface right here. Then it tells us to pick the circle tool. And in my window, to the best of my ability, I'm going to try to pick the center of this and draw a circle. It really doesn't matter how big or how centered I draw that circle, because SolidWorks gives me the ability to dimension it into place. So now that I'm done drawing my circle, I can hit my check mark because I'm done with that tool. Then I want to do Smart Dimension, and SolidWorks tells me to make this one 70 millimeters. So I can type in 70 and I can hit enter, or I can click on this check mark to make it accept. Then I have to define where this is in 3D space. So I'm going to make a relation between this line at the top of my box and the center of the circle, just like SolidWorks tells me. And this one is 60 millimeters. And then since I did the top, I need to pick a perpendicular one. So I'm going to pick this one in the center of my circle, and I'm going to make that one 60 millimeters. And now my drawing went completely black, which means it's fully defined, and SolidWorks understands where everything is. So I'm done with my dimension tool, and I'm done with my sketch. So I'm going to exit sketch. And if I did everything right, it should automatically go into my boss extrude yet again. SolidWorks tells me to change this dimension to 25 millimeters. Once I do that, I can see it do there. Then I can click my check mark, and I'm complete with those steps. So we just got through all those. Now the next thing we're going to do is cut a hole in it. So the extrude boss base adds material, because we added material by extruding this. The extruded cut removes material. So I click on that one. We're going to end up removing material from here. So I click there. Similarly, I'm going to click my circle tool. This time I have the ability to make it exactly in the middle, because if I hover over this outer circumference circle, it makes this origin, or that center point, appear, which then I can click on. And now these two circles share an origin, and SolidWorks understands where it is in 3D space. Then I can click my Smart Dimension tool and make this one 50 millimeters, is what SolidWorks wants me to do. And it's already black because SolidWorks understands where it is in 3D space. And then if I exit my sketch, because I'm done sketching, it should automatically go into my cut tool here. The instructions are going to tell me to change the direction to through all. Sometimes it's going the wrong way, and you can click this little button, but in my case, it's going the right way. So then I hit this check mark, and now I made a hole through my part. Again, it wants me to play with the view buttons. You guys are more than welcome to either use your middle mouse button, or you can click on any of these buttons that are available to you in SolidWorks. The other thing I want to show you guys is when you actually are selecting one of your items over here, it turns it blue in your picture, and it'll even show you the dimensions. So I could just click in the gray area to make it not select something, so I can just look at the part. And then I can hover over it, and they turn orange in my picture, or same thing, I can hover it over here, and it actually tells me what I'm looking at. So there's a lot of things that SolidWorks tries to make your life easy so you can correlate the words to the picture. But we are done with that step, so now we're going to do the fillets. So the first thing it wants me to do is we're doing fillets. So I'm going to click on that button. It opens my Property Manager window, and we're inside this blue box because we're going to populate what items we want to fillet. And it's going to tell me to click on the front face, so I click on that. And then it also wants me to click on these little lines. What's cool about SolidWorks is that you don't have to actually manipulate your space. Sometimes it can see through the object right there. I'm able to click on that line through everything. But you can also move it around and click on it too, if that's easier for you. And then it wants me to make this dimension 5 millimeters, it looks like. So I'm going to change this one right here to 5. And then I hit check mark, and I'm done with that one. And it just rounded off or fillet my edges there. Then it wants me to do this pretty much the exact same thing to this front part. So I'm going to hit fillet again, and then I'm going to click on that. This time it wants me to make it 1.5. Then I hit check mark, and I'm done with that. In between each one, you can tell that I click on the gray so that it turns from blue, so I can see what it looks like. And then we're done with that part, and then it wants me to shell it. So I'm going to use my middle mouse button to manipulate this to turn it around. Then I'm going to click my shell button up here, click the back of it, and it's going to populate it here. And now I'm going to change this to 2 millimeters is what the instructions are going to tell me to do. And when I hit check mark, it shells it out for me. So those steps are pretty easy. SolidWorks does all the hard work, as you see. This one's pretty cool, so we can click our trimetric view just to be able to flip it. And then the section view, this isn't required for the assignment, but ultimately you can grab these and you can manipulate and look at section views of your part, which I think is pretty fancy. You don't necessarily have to do this for the assignment, but when you have more complex parts, it's really cool to be able to slice it open to see what's going on. And then you can turn this thing like any direction, right? So that's a pretty cool feature, but that's what that part in the instructions are talking about. Then the next part we're going to go to is editing stuff. So it wants us to make this thicker. So it's talking about Boss Extrude 1, so when I click on it, it actually populates the dimensions here of my picture. And I can double click on my 30, and I can change that to a 50, is what the instructions are telling me to do. And then when I hit my check mark, I changed it, but nothing happened in my picture, because now I have this little stop sign over here, which means that SolidWorks wants to rebuild it. So up here is a little similar stop sign, and when I click on it, it's going to rebuild it. And what that does is it makes everything match and be pretty together again. So that's kind of an important step. It wants you to save, but I'm trying to get through this, so we're going to keep going. So now we're going to edit some features. So it changed its mind about how it wants the fillets to be done. So over here on your design tree, it wants us to alter fillet 1. So you could either left click on it or right click on it. So if I left click on it, I get this little box of windows. If I right click on it, I get the little box of windows and a bunch of other menus. Either way, all I want is this little box because the top left-hand corner one is called Edit Feature. So I'm going to click on that. And what the instructions want us to do is come in here. I'm going to click on Face. I'm going to right click on it and hit Delete. So that's going to leave just these other ones, and it wants me to change it to 10. So I'm going to change that to 10. And now I'm done with that one. And now it's going to show us that to make sure SolidWorks doesn't mess up this shell when we change this fillet again, we're going to actually grab this little blue bar and we're going to pull it above the shell. So now SolidWorks doesn't think that shell exists anymore. And we're going to be able to manipulate this without the shell getting in the way is what this step is going to have us do here. And now that we rolled it back, it wants us to add a new fillet because we want to actually add it here and not after the shell, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go back to my Features tab and click Fillet. And in this box, it wants us to populate the front again, and it wants us to change it to 5. So then I hit check mark, And it yells at me. What did I do? Oh, 5 millimeters, not 5,000. All right, check mark. And there we go. So now we have a 10 millimeter fillet here, and these are 5 millimeter fillets here. And then this is the 1.5 we did earlier. And now that I'm done, I can actually drag this back down because the shell's gone, right? So now we can put this back, and it shells it out, and it didn't mess up, even though I changed the geometry on the outside of it. And again, it's all important in the way that you build it. And now, so the computers at school struggle with this real view graphics, so I don't recommend doing it on the computers at school, but it just makes it look prettier. Before I click on this button, so you guys can actually see the effect of real view graphics, I'm going to show you how to change the material, because we can do that. So right over here, this again is like the in-words description of your part. So I'm going to right click on my part up here, and I know this is the part because it has the little Lego next to it. So I'm going to right click on there, and I can come down to materials and hit edit material. So this is going to change the material for the entire part. And down here on the list, if you follow the SolidWorks instructions here, the tutorial, it wants you to change it to chrome stainless steel. Then I hit apply and close. And now it kind of changed color. We didn't get to see it happen. But now if I click this real view graphics, which I can do on my computer because it has a good processor and memory in it, but you can obviously tell that it thinks that it's made out of stainless steel chrome now, or chrome stainless steel. And that is going to be the end of the tutorial. So make sure, again, to save this as your last name, underscore camera, underscore step 1. Put it somewhere where you know you can get to it, because this is going to be one of like 6 files that you have to turn in for this assignment. So I hope that this will get everybody on the same page. Again, we'll go through this in class one more time. I'm going to go even quicker because I hope that if anybody really didn't understand what was going on with this assignment or got lost or stuck along the way, that you guys have time to watch this video. And hopefully it will help you get through this assignment a little quicker as we try to finish it up next week. Have a good weekend. Bye.